Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode. And coming up, I'm going to be talking about something that I see cropping up time and time again for me and others, how we actually make time for our well-being in our busy lives. And so, in our time together today, we're going to delve into why we often feel trapped in a cycle of busyness, how we can redefine our relationship with time, and the subtle yet powerful shifts that can help us place our well-being at the forefront of our lives. Because whilst we feel like we have significant responsibilities for others, our careers, our businesses, the relationships that we have with ourselves, or the relationship that we have with ourselves, and our well-being is ultimately the foundation upon which everything else is built. We somehow conveniently forget that when we're letting our well-being fall to the wayside. And if you're a member of the Wellness for Women backstage, then make sure that you go to your complimentary resource by the end of the weekend. It'll be up and it will help you to dive deeper into your relationship with time. And of course, if you're not a member yet, you can work with me from as little as £9 whole. And so check out the comments or the description box to see how you can do that. Okay. So, understanding our relationship with time. So, do you ever feel like time is just this elusive creature that no matter how fast you go, you just can't seem to keep up with it, or you just can't seem to get everything done? I've certainly been there. I'm pretty sure most of you would have been there as well. It's pretty symptomatic for our everyday hustle bustle lives nowadays. But getting stuck in this do cycle is a real thing, a very real thing. And so how do you know that you're stuck in the do cycle? So you're perhaps constantly putting things off, the accompanying thought being things like, I'll just do this one thing and then I will do whatever it might be, but you then find that you've run out of time. Or you find yourself constantly rushing from one task to another without taking any breaks or slowing down, thinking that you just need to do more in order to succeed, to be successful, to get to the end of the day, whatever it might be. Maybe you have feelings of guilt and stress that can arise due to this because you think that you've perhaps spent time on the wrong thing. His daily schedule is filled with back to back commitments and deadlines, leaving no time for any relaxation, your health, your self care. Maybe you're overcommitted to projects or events, causing you to feel overwhelmed and unable to enjoy the present moment because these things are preoccupying your thoughts. Maybe you've got difficulty in actually prioritizing your tasks effectively, resulting in a lot of unfinished projects or just a general sense of unfulfillment. Maybe you feel like that you're at the mercy of everything and everyone else. And the ultimate thing, you constantly wish you had more time in the day. And here's a little gem for you. It's not about having more time in the day. It's about reshaping how you view and use your time that you have. Because at the end of the day, we all have exactly the same amount of time in the week, but it's obviously we all have different lives and different ways in which that combination works. And so for many of us, me included, very much me included, we can wear our busyness like a badge of honor. We can take extreme pride in the work that we do. We can also be a martyr to it as well, throwing ourselves on that busy sword so as to have the perfect excuse, bizarrely, considering we are so busy, to not do something. And in this case, what we're talking about is looking after our health and well-being. So we can throw ourselves on that busy sword and then neglect our health and well-being because we're too busy to do it. And this constant hustle can warp our sense of time, making us feel like we're just perpetually behind, feeling like we're just going round and round and round on this hamster wheel. But it's time to get off the hamster wheel and it's time to start to see things differently because time doesn't have to be our enemy. The same as I teach that food doesn't have to be our enemy, neither does time. And this is controllable, it's changeable if we work on our beliefs and our thoughts. And so I want to challenge you curiously, as ever, with love right now and ask you some questions. So, what if you have more control over time, over your life than you think? What if you could change things so that you could find the time for your health and well-being? What if you'd be saving yourself time in the long run if you did? What if looking after your health and well-being is not that big, massive time suck that you think it is? And what if the thing that you're prioritizing over your health and well-being doesn't need to be the priority that you think it does? Some questions, right? And time ultimately is an age-old excuse. It rolls off the tongue very easily, very automatically, and everyone understands it. It's easy to say we don't have time, and we can be so used to saying it that we don't even question if it's true. But what if it is all lies? What if, and I say this with love, you do have time, but you're choosing not to do whatever it is that you're putting off? What if you are currently choosing reality thinking that you have no alternatives, but actually you have loads and you're just actually closed off to considering them? It's just so stuck in that do cycle, you just can't see them. So, how does that feel? Did it hit a nerve? Because if it did, I absolutely hear you. It's hitting my nerves because pretty much I do a lot of these things myself, and it's something that I need to work on as well. And so sometimes we get, like I say, used to doing something a certain way that we don't see the excuses we're making. And sometimes it's hard to even admit that you're making excuses in the first place. I find it quite triggering to think that I'm making excuses, but I do sometimes. And so we want to fight for that current reality, even though sometimes might be busted AF and it needs some serious work over. That resistance that you're feeling right now is where your work is. And if you want things to change, you have to explore it with love and curiosity. And so, if right now any of this is resonating, it might be a sign that you've got a little bit of a mindset thing going on there that's limiting you and maybe holding you back. Could be something that's keeping you away from what truly matters to you, what's something that you want to do. You could be feeling very time poor and lacking, which ultimately is a scarcity mindset. And if you have a scarcity mindset, this often leads to self-fulfilling prophecies that hinder our ability to see abundance and opportunity. And it can hold you back from taking risks, trying new things, pursuing your goals with confidence, and generally impact your health and well-being. And so gaining this awareness, understanding your relationship with time and acknowledging this mindset is the first steps towards changing it. So let's break down some of those mind blocks today. Okay, let's start working on them as of today. And so again, if you remember, I would encourage you to use the TLC method for your thoughts on time. That's certainly one of the methods in the membership that you've got access to, one of the tools. But it's definitely one that has helped me time and time again. And for anybody who's not in the membership and can't grab that right now, you ask yourself, is it true? Is it loving? And then you get curious. So you're going to notice when you say and think that you don't have time, and you're going to try and start shifting that language, starting to reframe this as an action step. And consider saying things like, I have all the time I need for the things that truly matter, or I can make time, or how can I make time, or what am I saying yes to, and could I say no to it, and how? So those are just some things to change. And there's power, of course, always in the small change. And I've talked many a time on the show about the power of small changes. And again, we can make things like working on our health and well-being big, giant mountains that we think are just too hard to climb. But again, I have to challenge you with love and say, what if they're not as big as you think? What if you could break it down, keep it simple, keep it easy, keep it bite-sized, and something that you can do on the go, even if you think that you are busy? It may feel like you're only dropping a pebble into a pond sometimes because you're a doer. You think you're not doing enough. And this is where doing some mind injury, reaching out for coaching comes in. But in time, you do start to see those little pebble ripples start to spread. And then those pebbles can become rocks and the rocks become boulders. But you're all the time, it really only still just moving a pedal. Pedal? Pebble. So think about it. When you're racing from one task to the next, what's a small act of self-care that you can weave in? Maybe it's a 5-minute breather with your favorite music, or just having a cup of tea in silence and just sitting back and just trying to have a break from whatever chaos is ensuing around you. And these moments, just these tiny moments, they might seem like they're, again, not a lot, but actually these little pit stops that you can have through the day give you an opportunity to refuel so that you're really not running your engine into the ground all the time. Again, these mini adjustments, these mini pit stops, all these little pebbles, they start to stack up. And before you know it, they're not just isolated actions, they become more of a way of being. So you're not, again, just surviving your days, but you're just starting to infuse them with that little bit more joy and that little bit more care. And again, your future self is then going to thank you for that. Again, as a doer and all around busy bee, remember it's not about overhauling your life overnight. This is where typically we go wrong when we're trying to work on something. We make, again, everything into this big mountain, whereas actually we just need to work one step, one belief, one bite, one tiny choice at a time until they become significant. And before you know, you're living that life that you want to, the life of your dreams, the life with intention, the life with care, and a whole lot more self-love. So continuing on with taking action and making time, let's talk about the crux of the issue here, which is your choices and your current priorities. And again, it's easy to feel like we're at the mercy of our schedules and all the things on our to-do list, surviving, not thriving, trying to keep up with what we perceive in any given moment as the demands of our life, and often just letting ourselves and our needs, go into the dust. Yet we often do have more power than we think. Every day, with every decision, we're choosing what to prioritize. It's time that we ultimately start to choose ourselves a little bit more, just a little bit more, not a lot, just a little. So think about your typical day. It's just a series of choices from the moment you wake up to the time you put your head on the pillow again. You're just deciding all day how to spend your time. And I say the same with weight loss and food and your relationship with food, whether you're working on it with or without weight loss. They're just a series of decisions, just as simple as that, one decision to the next to the next. And so sure, sometimes things can feel like they're bigger decisions, but sometimes that's also just the mind gremlins getting in there. And of course, you're going to have some things that you are going to consider to be non-negotiables, things that you're going to deem to be a priority, perhaps work, family commitments, your business, that sort of thing. But even with those things that you feel are non-negotiable, there's often some wiggle room. And it's about finding those pockets of choice where we can actually say, hey, do you know what? My well-being does matter too. And there's so many different ways to coach around this, so many tools that we could use, depending on what the problem is in the first place, like why something like belief coding can help. So it's really important to just stop, take stock, and then look to decide, what tool might help you depending on what's going on. But the first step, because of course this is the AAA way, the first step is always that awareness. So it really just pays it pays to pay attention to how you're spending your time, because you might be surprised at the moments you could actually reclaim for yourself, even when you feel like you can't. And then it's also about intention. So making conscious decisions to insert a little bit of self-care into those moments that you can reclaim. Maybe it's choosing to listen to an uplifting podcast on the commute or listening to music. Or perhaps it's spending 10 minutes hugging the cat when you get home and just letting the joy and simplicity of that, release your stress levels. Because these small acts of self-care, they ultimately aren't a luxury. And we might see it everywhere. What can sometimes be a cliched saying that self-care is not selfish. But it genuinely isn't selfish, because it's a necessity, not only to better yourself, but you then become better for the people around you. And the people that need your help, whether that be loved ones, people that you serve in work or in business, you're able to then show up more fully, more authentically, and with a lot more to give. And so it is well worth working on you. It's just about trying to find the right way that fits your unique life. So let me know in the chat, how are you doing so far? How is this all landing with you? Are you noticing any resistance coming up to what I'm saying? It's likely you are. Again, psychological resistance can occur for a number of reasons. I have a list of them that I work through with my one-to-one clients. And for anybody who was with me before I started recording this live, I've got 2 new sessions that you can work with me one-to-one on. One is a food freedom Kickstarter, and the other is a belief blueprint session. And ultimately with the belief blueprint session, it's going to be about identifying these resistance areas, because if we don't remove this resistance, we're going to keep hitting our head against the proverbial big brick wall. If we don't identify what beliefs are holding us back, we're just going to keep reliving the old cycles. And so if you want any more information about that, check out the everything page, which is in the description. But what is your inner voice saying when it's conjuring up every reason under the sun why you can't make time for yourself? What's it saying? So is it, I have to do it or else this is going to happen? So is there some fear there? Are you worried about yourself? Are you worried about somebody else? So is there a safety issue? I need to be there. So again, things like I need to be there for everybody else. So you're worried about other people. Maybe it's I don't know how. So therefore you've got a resourcing issue. So does any of that sound familiar? Do you know what comes up when you are thinking that you don't have time? Because as I say, your brain may say, I don't have time, but usually there's some layers underneath. And so that resistance is often not about, I say, time itself. It's about what we're conditioned to believe. Sometimes conditioned to believe what we deserve, conditioned to believe what we're capable of changing, what we're capable of doing. We might not feel worthy. We might not feel deserving. And I say might be that we're worried about other people. It can also be about just not wanting to do the thing, whatever it might be. So maybe it might be, like exercise. And so again, time is the perfect excuse. I can't possibly do it. I don't have time. Whereas really, maybe we don't want to do the exercise. So then the work is in figuring out what the beliefs are about the exercise. That maybe it's too hard or, I'll never stick at it, something like that. So again, all of these are psychological. And so it's about just facing that discomfort and facing the discomfort that change might bring, because our brains like to stick to the familiar at the end of the day, but often that's not serving us. It can feel a lot safer to stay where we are than stepping out of the unknown. But all of these things can be navigated if we listen to our thoughts, if we work on our underlying beliefs, and if we really peel back the layers with that curiosity, that loving curiosity, so no judgment, and as much, like I say, self-love as you can muster into that. So starting to wrap up, and I can see that there are questions in the chat because, of course, I do this live and I'll stay on after to answer these questions. But starting to wrap up, I want to leave you thinking about what we've covered. So I've talked about the importance of working on your relationship with time, your beliefs, your thoughts, your feelings, talking about stepping into action, which is the second stage of my AAA way process, just those small little action steps that you can take. And if you really believe that time was no issue, and we talked about facing your objections, facing resistance. So I'll leave you again with some more questions. What is it that you need to believe about time, about you, about your well-being needs, to just make that little bit of time for you and your well-being? And how can you get that done today or tomorrow? And as usual, you don't have to go it alone. I've already talked about how you can seek support from me. We've also got various different ways that we can work together. So you just have to reach out and have a look. Let's work on that relationship with time, relationship with food, because there's a whole community of us who are working on all of these things together. So there's plenty of support, plenty of strategies, just more and more insights for you to weave into your well-being. So that's me for this week. Until next week, take care of yourselves. Find that little window for you. You do deserve it. Bye for now. Thanks for listening. And don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.